twice. My clothes still the only things I would change.
Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Righteous Kind of Podcast. I am here with a good friend of mine, Miss Nina Potts. How are you doing today?
Hello. I'm doing well. How are
Doing
you?
well. I'm doing well. Thank you. It is a beautiful Friday. And we're here to talk about life, love, liberty. Are you a patriotic person?
What do you mean by patriotic?
Am
I proud to be an American?
that's a type of patriotism. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Sure.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, sure is just like basically code for it depends on if I need to pretend like I am.
Right.
Yeah, anyways. So we are here. This is the Righteous Kind of Podcast. I do have to welcome all of my new viewers because I believe in putting out positive energy, right? And so the whole point of this podcast, as I explained to you, is to kind of like uplift the community. Our mission at Righteous Kinda, which is a lifestyle brand, is to inspire people to live a purpose-driven life. We do that through a couple of different mediums. We have our critical conversation medium, which is our podcast and our media channel. We have a clothing brand, and then we have our community service, community development, where we just basically go out into the community and try to do good, right? So today we are going to honor one of our newest lines of our clothing brand, which is the Common Sense Collective. All right. And the reason why I wanted to honor that with you is because I believe, as long as I've known you, you have a pretty good sense of common sense. And so if you check out our website, you'll see all the merch with Common Sense Collective. Essentially what it is it's just trying to put positivity in the world and use the common sense God gave you to make the world a better place, right? Ba-dum, boom, all right, cool. So I have the honor of knowing you for quite some time now. We met in the world famous poetry scene back in the early 2000s, right? It's been a minute. Since then, you have moved to the East Coast. You started a beautiful family. You've gone through some trials and tribulations, but you're still here. You're still kicking and screaming and doing your best in the world. So what I want to ask you, Nina, without getting too deep right away, is what does the word resilience mean to you?
Resilience is, I think, just the ability to continue to not just survive, but also thrive through any adversity in life.
Mm-hmm.
I do think it's something that you're born with or gifted with. I don't think it's something that can be taught.
That's an interesting point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why do you think that you're born with resilience? Or actually, can I ask, do you think everyone is born with it and some just know how to access it more deeply than others, or some people aren't born with it?
I think that some people are just not born with it.
Okay.
I think that it's a necessary part of survival. So it may be something that you tap into earlier in life than you do later in life, and then that continues to strengthen the more you kind of overcome things. But I mean, I've met people that the slightest, inconvenience is just too much for them.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that's why I would argue that maybe not everyone is born with it.
Okay. I will have to investigate my thoughts on that because I don't know. I never really thought if people are born with it. I would like to believe that everybody is born with an inkling of it, because let's just think about being born for a second, right? How crazy is being born? You have how many children?
4.
Damn. Just kidding. 4 beautiful
That's
children.
What I say every day.
No,
when
I
see
know.
them.
Kids are crazy, man. So you have 4 children. So like think about, I don't remember being born. I'm kind of glad that I don't, but just think about if we knew and remembered being born, how crazy of an experience that would be.
Yeah, I think it's pretty overwhelming.
Right? It's
Yeah.
like probably going from the abyss of like space and just shooting down onto Earth.
Yeah,
And-
and everything's different, uncomfortable. The temperature changed. It's bright.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You think babies say "fuck"?
absolutely.
Like that's probably what they're saying
Absolutely.
when they're
Like,
born.
what was that about?
What
Yeah.
was that about? Yeah. So that being said, if that's the journey of birth and creation, then I believe that you have to be born with a little bit of resilience,
Sure.
right?
Sure.
And just like anything else, right? Creativity, all the things that make us human. But I think that in order to tap into these superpowers that I think that come from a higher power, that like I believe in, that God gives us everybody a baseline of superpowers. But in order to tap into them, you really have to first connect to the creator, right? And then figure out how to build those skills into what would be a purpose-driven life.
Sure.
Is that like a fair, you think that's real?
I think so, yeah. I think obviously it takes a little bit of resilience just to get through, whether it's something as simple as taking a test at school or graduating.
Yeah.
I don't know. So, yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, but I do also agree that there is a whole large percent of the population that has not been able to tap into like what it is to be human. Because here's the thing, right? What is it to be human? To be human is to suffer in many ways, right? I don't think being human is about pleasure as much as it is about suffering. And we have to find the joy in that, but like every day is kind of a day like survival, and so that's going to bring me to a place in this where you have gone through some significant trials in your life, even starting from as a young person. Do you want to speak a little bit about like what your young life was like?
Sure. Yeah. So I grew up in the system. I was awarded the state. I had some pretty significant childhood trauma coming into the system, just from my home life, and a pretty broken, dysfunctional, toxic family. And I kind of just moved around a lot throughout the time that I was in the system. And I aged out on my 18th birthday. I was never adopted or anything. So just kind of thrusted into the world and had to just do my best to figure things out for myself.
Yeah. What is it like growing up in the system?
It's rough. It's very, very rough. There's a significant lack of stability, and I think other major things that are required for a healthy, developing person. And I think in many ways kids that are in the system are robbed of just the human right to be able to develop into a healthy human being, because we're just not able to access certain resources. We're not in an environment. They just can't create that type of environment that you need to thrive and be prepared for adulthood. So very challenging.
So as a young person, right, who's trying to so going back to the initial like being born, you're like, fuck.
Yeah.
And then, you're like, all right, you start to like figure out what it is, and then that's all snatched from you, depending on when you go into the system, right?
Sure.
But I don't know a lot. I'm not a scholar in like early childhood development, but like those early years are so important for everything that you just said, right? Is providing that sense of stability and foundation for a young person. So you've been dealing with resilience since a young age, right? And then when you were 18 years old, like how old were you when I met you?
I think 21, 22.
22. So from 18 to when I met you at 22, like what did your life look like? What were the first steps that you took after aging out of the system? And for those who don't know, the system is like what is?
It's like the foster care
system, right?
So like my legal guardian was the state of Arizona.
Yeah. Okay. So what happens between 18 and 22 when I meet you?
So I get out of the system. Within the first year, I kind of fall into the statistics of getting pregnant. It's usually typically, young pregnancy or...
How old were you when you got pregnant?
18.
18.
And gave birth at 19. And I was a single mom, and I had got my first apartment across the street from GCC, and I attended GCC and I had to like everything. I had to get my license the first year. I had to learn so much that I just felt like I was so far behind peers my age. And so I really struggled through having to figure things out, a lot of trial and error, a lot of making mistakes, a lot of learning from mistakes.
Yeah.
So,
What were you studying at GCC?
I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. It was more leaning toward medical, so I did a lot of my prerequisites during that time. And then I ended up going to school to be an MA.
Okay. What did you want to be when you were a kid? Did you have those dreams?
I actually wanted to be a marine biologist.
A marine, so that's studying fish and stuff
The
like
ocean,
that?
yeah.
Yeah, the ocean. What was it about the ocean that fascinated you?
Still to this day, fascinated. It just seems like it's a whole other planet, like a whole other world.
It really is. I agree with you.
Yeah,
We don't know what's at the bottom of the ocean.
exactly.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And water's scary. Like kinda.
Yeah, I think, and I'm self-aware enough to admit I'm a little delusional. I think that all of the orcas and sharks would be happy to swim with me and
Yeah.
be my friend, and I understand that that's irrational, but I like.
Have
to believe
you
that.
seen the second Avatar?
No, not yet.
No?
No.
Have you seen the first one?
Yeah.
Okay. So the second one is really not. I'm not want to spoil it for you, but it's about a different type of I don't know what you call them, creature.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not really an avatar, but it's all about them being in the ocean.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'll
it's
have to
really
check it
cool.
out.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's a dope movie. So then I meet you at 22. How did you end up at home base?
Okay, so that's
Yeah,
a
who
funny
invited
story.
you?
Yeah, so when I was in the system, I was 17 years old. I'd been writing poetry since I was about 11, and I had an art teacher that invited a poet, a local poet. I don't know, can I name drop?
Yeah,
Divine.
Divine.
Yeah, and so she
Sheesh.
came in and did a little workshop, and my art teacher kind of let me shadow her through all of her
Really?
through all of her presentations, and formally introduced us, and she gave me feedback. I was able to share some of my poems with her, and that's actually the first time that the concept of memorizing your poems was introduced to me. And she told me about it, and she's like, when you get out when you're 18, like there's a place to come and share your poetry and be around other creatives, and that's how I found out about Home Base,
Yeah,
so.
that's cool. I shout out to Divine.
Shout out to
I love Miss Divine. She's one of my fellow Puerto Rican
Yeah.
peoples, all right, so you end up at home base. Home base is wild at this particular time. I don't talk a lot about it on this particular podcast, but it was a cultural mecca for spoken word poetry and in Phoenix. And I mean, on average, there'd be like 200 to 300 people there. Like that's crazy for an open mic. And that's where I was raised as a poet. And so you come to home base, and how long before your first visit to when you get up on the mic and perform?
Oh, that's a good question.
Did you have the intent to perform? Like, did you go the first time being like, yeah, I want to perform? Or was it like, let me figure this out and then get inspired?
I wanted to figure out what sort of poetry, I guess, that I would be comfortable enough sharing. So I wanted to get a feel, and then I was very intimidated and also inspired, but there was so much talent in the room that it was very inspiring that I was like, I just got to get
Thanks.
up there.
Because I was there.
Yeah.
Was I talented?
From what I remember, yeah.
Yeah, you damn right I was. Yeah, so when did you finally decide to perform your first poem?
I had already written one that I wanted to share. It was something that was on my heart for a long time, and kind of just talking about, it was really surrounded around having my first child and incorporating just some of my childhood and what it was like for me becoming a mother, and kind of just having a super intentional focus of giving my child a different life. And so I just sat and memorized it. And when I realized how easy it was to memorize it, even though it was a pretty long poem, I was like, oh, This is like,
Yeah,
okay.
it's intoxicating almost.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I agree.
I still remember my whole journey and how amazing it was.
Yeah.
What was it like being a young mom?
I mean, it's challenging because I feel like I was also still in the midst of raising myself while I was raising a
Oh,
child.
for sure, you were.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, not to be like, I'm not trying to be funny,
that's
but like
real,
you
yeah.
you were literally figuring out what life was while also raising a child.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What were some of the challenges of being a young single mom?
Just trying to,
Like, why were you single mom? Because were you annoying?
um,
I'm just kidding. I'm sorry.
no.
Pause. Pause.
I,
That was a joke. You don't
no,
have to
no.
explain.
I do want to
Okay.
explain
All
actually
right.
because it
Because you were annoying.
no, I was not annoying.
All right.
Like you are right now. No, I, unfortunately ended up with someone that wanted to verbally wanted express that he wanted to be a father, and then when I finally had him, it was like he kind of regressed himself back into a child and very childish
Was he young
ways,
as
and-
well?
yeah, but he was about 2 years older than me.
Okay.
So, yeah, it was a difficult kind of. I had to really develop at that time. What are some firm boundaries? You know, if I'm going to be this intentional about breaking the cycle and giving my child the life I never had, then I have to be intentional about who I allow in their life and things like that. In this particular instance, it was more of an abandonment situation that he, walked away. And sometimes I think with some people, it's kind of better off that way. They kind of are more of a blessing to you if they stay out of your life rather
Oh
than
yeah.
be in it. So yeah, I was very, very determined, and even I guess some would describe me as strong-willed, but I was just not going to allow my child to be able to look back and say that they had anything in common, with my childhood.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and I will say one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on the podcast just in general was because I was raised by a single mother. I now that I am a father and understand what being a parent is and how hard it is to raise a kid in a two-parent household. Like I have so much respect for single moms when they do it right. There are some single moms that don't care, and but like you have always been a great mother.
Thank you.
I remember that from very early on. In fact, I met Zion when we were doing the Rising Youth Theater, the play.
yes.
Yeah,
yes.
and you were there, and Zion was there,
And I think some of the phonetic spic events too, I brought him
yeah,
to the library.
yeah. So, so I forgot where I was when I asked about
Single mom. you were
single mom. Yeah. So, after you perform your first poem,
Mhm.
okay, what did it feel like, and did you think like at that moment this was something you wanted to pursue like as a profession, like because that's the reality is most poets either go up, perform a poem and say that was cool but I don't ever want to do that again, or they perform a poem and they're like I want to be a professional poet and travel the world. Like what was your mind frame?
I think I was somewhere in the middle of just more like it was a very therapeutic creative outlet for me in a way that I could express myself, and I had a deep desire to be understood.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my way of kind of communicating to the world. I got a standing ovation on my first
Did you?
first time, yeah. So
Home
that
home
felt
base
good.
was really good for like honoring the poet.
Absolutely.
Like that's not to say that if you sucked or were weird, right? Let's not say the S word. Let's just say there were some weird
Yeah,
poets, right?
absolutely. You're gonna find those at every open mic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What it's not an open mic unless there's a couple of like
Exactly.
people that you want to just pat on the shoulder and be like, "It's okay, buddy."
Yeah.
It's
Maybe
okay,
we
buddy.
sit the next one out.
Yeah. But I don't even know where I went there. Oh, so you were in the middle, right? Yeah. And then you went from there, and then you kind of, I would say, disappeared.
Mhm.
And I'll say it's because you and I got in a fight. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. No, we didn't get in a fight.
No.
I think that it was so interesting. I'll say with home base, we all kind of came up. I think of it as like going to college. Like there was like 4 strong years of just like exceptional culture and community and fun. And then everybody kind of went off and did their own thing, and you wound up and found yourself on the East Coast, right? What inspired you to leave Arizona and go to the East Coast?
Yeah, so I had an ex-boyfriend that...
It's always an ex-boyfriend.
It's always an ex-boyfriend.
You're either running from him or you're running to him.
Yeah. So we actually met out here in Arizona, and we broke up, and he moved back east, and then we reconnected, and he invited me to come out there for just a couple visits, and we rekindled things and then made it official. It's like,
Nice.
let's just kind of relocate out there and live our life out there. And
where was this on the East Coast?
Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is a very big state.
Yes, it is.
Where at in Pennsylvania?
We lived in a little town called Macungie right outside of Allentown.
Okay.
Most people would be more familiar with Allentowns, but
Yeah.
it's like one of the little small suburbs.
Is it close to Pittsburgh at all?
No,
No?
Pittsburgh's pretty far. It's about 45 minutes from Philly.
Oh, okay. So more like closer to the East Coast, because like Philly's really close to New York, right?
Yes, in New Jersey.
In New Jersey, yeah. My mom was born in Pittsburgh. That's why I asked.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I've never been there, but I don't know, something about Pennsylvania that it's in my spirit for some reason. Yeah. All right. So very green in the East Coast. So you went out there for a boy.
For a man.
A man, right? You fall in love. You get married.
I was in love before that, but yes.
Oh, okay. Well, I'd hope so. I'd hope if you like just decided to leave, there's a little bit of love involved. You get married. What was that like?
Beautiful.
Beautiful.
Best day ever.
Yeah. What is so? Did you think about marriage as a young person?
Yes, and I had a very negative concept of marriage because I had never seen a healthy marriage.
Yeah.
And
I relate to that.
Me and him actually viewed marriage as like, in some way, it was like this idea of jinxing your relationship in a way, like you're almost guaranteed to, I don't know, get a divorce if you get married.
50% of all marriages end in divorce.
Exactly.
I've heard that before. I've never verified it, but it sounds about accurate.
Yeah.
It's hard to be married, right? So, but marriage is good. Marriage is a spiritual connection. I'm not a scholar in marriage either, just lived experience, but it's oftentimes connected to a religious foundation. At this point, what was your faith like? Did you have a faith? Did you guys have similar faiths?
Absolutely. Always.
Yeah.
Since I was a
Equally
kid.
yoked.
Yes,
Okay.
definitely. We were very we were very on the same page about really understanding scripture and really understanding kind of what it means to glorify God. And, we both, there were things that like we didn't really understand truly about each other that maybe caused a little bit of conflict. But I think because we were both on the same page of, if we are going to spend the rest of our lives with each other, it is imperative that we learn how to live together in peace and harmony. And
Yeah.
I think because we were both on the same page there and that we were both so driven and intentional about living that life and having, this idea of having a healthy family and things like that, I honestly think that's why it worked out and we started on the right foot, so to speak, because we were genuinely on the same page.
Yeah.
Genuinely best friends.
Yeah, beautiful. And so you had a faith-based kind of life since you were young?
Yes. I would say that was probably the one thing that maybe my mom did right.
Your biological
my
mom?
biological mom.
Okay.
Although she was not a genuine Christian.
Yeah. Oh, I want to put a button on what is a genuine Christian, but okay.
She was a Christian for about, an hour a week on Sundays at church,
Yeah.
and that was about it. But I just mean she didn't really lead by example. There was no real talking about God and the Bible. It was just used to kind of weaponize and
Yeah.
control, and a lot of spiritual abuse with that. So, but being around the church was helpful. Being in youth group and things like that was helpful. And I really believe early on, through no, even desire of my own or nothing that I did, I just think that God really had his hand on my life. And knowing the environment that I was in and knowing just the troubles that were sure to come in my future, I really think that he carried me through.
Yeah. I mean, we can talk for hours about God and faith and religion, and I want to. I'm going to say that one of the things I'm working on with Righteous Kinda and the podcast is doing a little more of a focused series on God, faith, and religion. Instead, like, these are more like free form conversations, but I want to do something very intentional because I myself have had an interesting journey with being a Christian in God, and I think that there are times where those things are synonymous, God and Christianity, and I think there are times where, for reasons that you explain, where there is a disconnect, and so, but that's not what this is about today, right? So you get married under the guise of love and spirituality and faith. And then when did you have your first child? Because you had Zion, right? And then you and your husband had 3 children prior.
Yes.
After.
Yes. So my 2 daughters.
That'd have been some like Mary Magdalene stuff, right?
Yeah. My 2 daughters, they are 15 months apart, so got pregnant back to back there. And then
Back to back.
Yeah.
Drake, you
It
a
was
little bit of
wild.
Drizzy.
People are like, "Oh yeah, like that seems easy. Like you just kind of get it over with back to back." To be clear, I do not recommend
Okay.
having them that close together.
I don't recommend more than one kid. Just
that's
just
that's
put that
also
out there.
a really
you
fair
know,
point. That's
Yeah.
a fair point. Although only children sometimes are a little.
they're tough.
Yeah, my husband was an only child.
Yeah.
So.
So Santiago, my youngest, is 8, and then Bubba is 17, and Lexi is 20. So there's a big age difference. So I feel like Santi's an only child because,
Sure.
like, I have to play with him all of the time, and it's exhausting.
Yeah,
Man, I'm like, bro,
they can just. Keep
I
going,
I
keep
wish
going.
they. Actually, I was gonna say something that was trying to be funny, but then I was like, no, they actually do that. I was like, I wish you could adopt kids like dogs. Like, oh, actually, that is a thing, right? But I want them for a little bit.
Yeah.
Just adopt them for a play date.
That's called being an uncle.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I always thought I would make a way better uncle than a dad. But, anyways, I digress. So you have your 2 daughters back to back, and then you have your youngest son.
Yes. But there is a little bit of a story, I guess, in between that because
Yes.
especially my youngest was not expected.
Mhm.
My husband, unfortunately, was diagnosed with brain cancer, and he had 3 recurrences. And, he was on chemo and radiation. And prior to that treatment, the doctors were like, kind of talking about, maybe we should preserve some things because you're basically going to be sterile after this. And if you guys want to have more children, we were kind of like, we're blessed. We have 3 kids.
Mhm.
Trust me, we're good. And then, surprise, God had other plans. And so I had my second boy. So now I have two boys and 2 girls.
Yeah. So your husband diagnosed with brain cancer. It's a specific type of cancer. I think, if I'm not mistaken, we're in a month of awareness around this cancer. Or?
Yes,
Yeah.
May is kind of Go Gray in May, brain cancer awareness. He had glioblastoma,
Okay.
and glioblastoma is very aggressive. It always comes back, and no matter how many surgeries that are performed, basically because of the nature of the cancer, it's basically a lot of different cancers in one.
Mm.
And they have tentacle-like features from the tumor in the cells that kind of gather in the brain. And so because of that and because of the way our brain is shaped, it's impossible to get all of it. And so obviously if you leave any behind, it's going to continue to grow. It's going to continue to come back until it ultimately takes your life.
Yeah.
So
And you lost your husband.
I did.
Yeah. What was his name?
Daniel.
Daniel. Oh, shit. That's cool. That's funny. And that's not even almost something I could fathom, right? What happens to you at this particular point in your life?
Yeah. The entire journey was really, really wild and hard. a big part of that, I don't want to get emotional. A big part of that was the location of the tumor was in his left frontal lobe, which is responsible for your personality, impulse control, things like that. So you kind of start to lose the person before you lose the person.
Yeah.
And it was really hard to see, especially in someone so young. It was frustrating and a lot anxiety inducing every single time you had to go in for a scan. And then, consistently it'll be like clear scan, clear scan, clear scan. And then boom, you go in for your next scan and it's grown. And it's devastating every time. And, talking to the neurosurgeon, and it's a whole thing where they go to a tumor board and they discuss the best, course of treatment. And everything is very, very, it's just very difficult the whole way through. It's very emotional. It's very discouraging. And then trying to just maintain continuing to be a good wife, a good mother. I was homeschooling my children at the time. And being able to manage all of that was very, very hard.
How does your faith play into that situation? And I'm not asking that as a cliche way. I'm like, genuinely, I would think for me, if there's one just ultimate positive about faith, is that you can always lean on it, but you have to believe it, right? How does your faith play into this particular part of your life?
Yeah, so I would say that my faith was tested in a major way. I was someone that had a very bold faith in the way that I spoke with such certainty, and that was ultimately tested when it mattered the most. But that is when I truly feel like I came to believe that the faith that I had was real. Because it's so easy to abandon that faith and that belief when you're not getting what you want. Our prayers are answered, but it's not always the answer that we want.
Yeah, no,
So,
it's a real thing.
Yeah, you can't twist God's arm into doing what you want and what you think is best. And so ultimately, that is where I really learned a huge lesson in faith that is surrender. And that's really, really hard for us. So.
I think it's the hardest thing because faith has to be rooted in this idea that there is something bigger than us, right? And depending on how you journey through life and how you connect to that faith, you have moments where you can feel it, see it, hear it, but overwhelmingly it's not there. You know what I mean?
There's so many like Christian
Stop
cliches.
crying, bro.
I know,
what
sorry.
are you doing?
I know I'm supposed to be a G. What's going on?
I asked you if you were going to be all gangster. I was like, look, man, we can only do this if you're going to be gangster about it, bro. So, just kidding.
No, but there's a lot of Christian, cliches that we like to say. And we got to walk by faith, not by sight.
Yeah.
Things like that. And this was an example of really what that looks like. And I hear people, there's like a song, I want to be tried by fire and I want to be, sanctified and all of this. And it's like, be careful what you wish
yeah,
for.
right.
Because when
you
that
say that
really
now,
happens,
bro. Yeah.
you're like, I would rather be doing anything but this.
Yeah. No, yeah. It's so interesting because for me, my faith, have you ever, and I apologize if I've asked you this because I get yelled at a lot. They're like, you ask me this all the time. Have you ever read The Alchemist?
Yes.
Okay. My favorite book. And it is very much about connecting your faith and your spirituality with the world, the physical world and the universe, right? It's like where the physical world and the universe collide. And it's, for the most part, there's a lesson in everything, right? And everything that we go through for some particular reason. And sometimes those things that we go through are absolutely devastating, right? And we as humans have to decide to keep pushing forward, not because we're like, oh, I'm going to push forward because I want the lesson, right? I don't think that's why we push forward. I think we push forward because we're resilient. I know, you got kids, Like, you can't just shut your life down. You got to take care of the kids. And then you find a lesson in it at some point. But God, I just feel like this is why when I say being a human is just, it's a painful experience.
It is.
And this is one of the most painful things that I think a human can go through. Death is a part of life, but like there's some deaths that just don't feel fair or right, Yeah. How are you doing now? How long has it been since your husband, Daniel, passed?
So we just came up on the 3rd year anniversary of his death, and it's been really, really hard. Something I was thinking about when you were talking about, making that decision to keep moving forward. I think just another example of just the reality of God carrying you is surviving and overcoming things even when you didn't care to anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Even when you kind of just lost your will to, because it's, what's the point of this,
Mm-hmm.
There was just a moment where I had been overcome with the reality of I've been through tragedy after tragedy, trauma after trauma. Am I just here to live this awful suffering life? Because if that's the case, I got to tap out. I can't do it anymore. And so being where I am right now is proof that, I survived and thrived through that even when I didn't care to, even when I didn't intentionally want to. Moments that, days when I just struggled to even get out of bed and put one foot in front of the other. And God really, really carried me. And if he hadn't, I know I wouldn't still be here.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think that what's interesting is that I've known you for enough time to know that you are a remarkable human in a lot of ways, right? And people like you have the ability to make the greatest impact in the world, right? And God uses us in ways that serve his kingdom. And it's funny. So can I push pause real quick? That sounds crazy coming out of my mouth because I'm like, I've always been like Christian, but like I hate Christians, if that makes any sense, right? So now that I'm starting to say things that it sounds like I'm being fake, but I'm like, no, I actually believe this shit, man. Like, but like everything that we go through is to serve the kingdom of God. And that comes into what I believe is that ultimate surrender, right? Where once you can surrender your life to God, doesn't mean it's going to be easier. It just means that you're going to find more peace in the struggle, right? But I do believe, to the point of where we started with resilience, some people are just designed, in my opinion, to shine in ways that others won't. Mm-hmm. And I think that you're one of those humans.
Thank you.
Right? So what are your plans? Like what if I had to ask you right now, having gone through all that you've gone through, you're still very young, right? You're not even You're mid-30s, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, get out of here. Okay? I'm halfway through 40, and let me tell you, I feel great, but like you're still young. Mm-hmm. Assuming that everything from this moment forward is smooth sailing for you, let's hope and pray. What is it that you want to do now in your life?
Yeah, so I have a belief that nothing was wasted. That's actually my Instagram handle for a reason. And I plan on doing more with that concept. But I kind of refuse to let any of that go to waste in the sense that I want to use that to encourage, inspire, uplift, and really just bring hope. I think
Mm-hmm.
hope is something that's missing in the world these days, and just be able to provide a different perspective, of I know that when I connect with a lot of people and I kind of share my full story, a lot of the feedback I always get is like, man, I thought like what I went through was hard. And
Yeah.
I struggled, surviving what I went through. And, so I can see when people are kind of able to hear and compare and really understand what that meant to survive and go through those hard times, how it shifts people's perspective into how all things are possible with God.
Yeah. All things are. Hey, Did you know?
All things are possible.
Did you say that on purpose?
It just
You
know, it
can't
just came
see
to
it
me.
in the camera, but this is one of our shirts as well. That's a perfect segue into a commercial break. RighteousKinda.com. Saving the world one shirt at a time, baby.
all things are possible.
All things, I believe it. I believe all things are possible. And that for me has always been a belief system that I had, because what other choice do I got? You know, like that's really how I look at it. It's like, what other choice do I got? I'm going to make some shit happen.
Absolutely.
And I will until the day that I die. Like I will be the person who is figuring things out on my deathbed, because why not? Like there's so much that this world can offer us, and while we have the blessing of being down here, right? It's our duty to enjoy it. You know, I want to see some, like, have you traveled at all?
Yeah.
Where, like
course.
real travel? Like we ain't talking about like some little town in Pennsylvania.
Does Puerto Rico count?
Hey, my people. Yeah, Puerto Rico. You been to Puerto Rico?
Yeah.
Nice.
I went
Where
there
at?
for my 30th.
Nice.
San Juan.
San Juan. That's where my grandma was from.
Oh.
Yeah, that's not how they talk in Puerto Rico. But anyways, coño way.
They all speak Spanish.
They
though,
all speak
even
Spanish.
At fast food places.
I know. It's a different type of Spanish, man. But so there's so many places in this world that I want to see. You know, like I'm not a flat earther. Like I don't believe the earth is flat. But I also have no proof that it's not.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because I don't understand science. There's probably a scientist out there that's like, actually, there's a lot of proof about the radius and the axis. But I don't know if Iceland really exists. I want to go see it.
Yeah.
You know, and the only way you can travel is if you figure out how to, you know, get there. And so all things are possible through Christ who strengthens me.
And if you have a passport.
And if you get your passport also. All right. So Nina, first and foremost, thank you for sharing this story, because I know it's not easy. And for context purposes, I reached out to you months ago to inquire if you would be willing to share, because I believe that voices and stories such as yours need to be heard. But there's obviously sensitivity issues, and so it has to be something that you're willing to do. And so I just want to say I'm so grateful that you chose to come on to this podcast and this platform to talk about that, because that's what we're really trying to do. Like we are really trying to, I know it's cliche, but like, why is it so hard to make the world a better place? And like, it's crazy to me. I was like, I'm just trying to do good in the world, and I just run into so much resistance all of the time.
People be people.
People be peopling. You know what I mean?
But that's why Scripture tells us to do not put your faith in people, but
yes,
your faith in God only.
Oh, so check this out. This morning, I have the Bible app on my phone, and this morning I went to it, and it has a daily verse, and it was the verse. Actually, I'm gonna pull it up because I don't want to mess it up.
Yeah. Don't be messing up God's
Don't
word.
be messing up the word of the Lord. For those of you who are interested in this app, I will tell you what it is. But the verse of the day is John 13, verse 14. And it says, "Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet." First of all, gross.
Really? You wouldn't wash?
No, just kidding.
You wouldn't want to wash anyone's feet?
Well, it's funny because when I read that, I don't have a home church. We're currently as a family interviewing churches.
That's
You know
fair.
what I mean? But I've tabernacled. I've gone to, and I faintly remember being at a church. This might be a dream. I might have saw it in a movie. It might have been real life. I can't confirm. But I remember a pastor getting up on stage and washing people's feet.
Yeah.
In that verse, right? And I was just like, this seems extreme.
Right.
Like, but what I take from that is, can you imagine the feet back in Jesus' days?
Well, yeah, that's why it was such a blessing, I guess, or a way of
Yeah.
really taking care of, or a gesture of love. Because back then, they didn't have shoes like how we
Yeah,
have shoes.
they're just dusty toes.
It was necessary, to keep their feet clean.
Yeah, right.
So willing to do that for someone else, I think, is can be applied to more modern day.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I get from it. It's humility, right?
Right.
Because so here I am, I'm God. And I'm washing your feet. But I'm doing it to show to you that now that I've washed your feet, go out and wash someone else's feet. And that to me is a very simple way to talk about how we should be in the world, and it's hard. I get it. Nobody is perfect. That's really why I started Righteous Kinda, was because I was so tired of people just like, the people I knew were either like so self-righteous, could do no wrong, or hella kinda, and just didn't even care to be a good human, right? And I was like, how come we can't have a little bit of both, right? But it does start with humbling yourself, right? Washing someone else's feet, metaphorically, unless you want to wash them literally. I might just go out. That might be my thing. That's how I'm going to get YouTube famous.
Yeah.
I'm just go out and wash people's feet.
See how many people let you.
But I'm going to do it in like a genuine way. Be like, can I wash your feet for the Lord? And then I'm going to be like, bro.
People are going to call the cops on you.
Bro, you should take care of these dogs. We are not in Jesus' days. What is going on here?
People are going to be like, we just go get pedicures. That's
Yeah.
just what we do.
Yep. All right. So, but thank you. Thank you for that, because I really do believe that your story is super powerful. I know you to be a really good human, and you've evolved a lot since I met you. Hopefully I've evolved a lot since, because I was a little wild back in the day. So thank you for giving me grace in those ways. We're going to do a little fun kind of wrap up thing. Okay. So how I started Righteous Kinda was one day I was walking my dog, and it was around the COVID times. So it was like there was a lot of people weren't connecting, and I was walking my dogs, and I was just like, man, mediocrity is whack. No, mediocrity is whack. I'm messing up my own story. Mediocrity is whack. Don't be whack. And I got the biggest kick out of it. I started laughing out loud, and I got home and I was like, man, I should put that on a shirt. And that's how it kind of started, right? And so let's do, if you were to design a shirt under the brand of Righteous Kinda, meaning it's a little bit righteous, it's a little bit kinda, what would your shirt be? I thought of one while we were talking that I think would be really cool for you. You want to hear what mine is for you?
I do.
Okay. You can have it. All right. Bad bitches pray. Think about imagine walking into church with that.
It would be wild.
Bad bitches pray.
They would be like, you know what?
What can they say?
Come as you are.
Come as you are. And also, like, everybody kind of wants to be a bad bitch.
Right.
Right?
Like, let's not pretend.
Let's not pretend.
Everybody wants to be a baddie.
But we're praying, though.
Right.
Like, you can't get mad at it, but you would be mad.
I mean, if God created baddies, like,
yeah.
who are we to not glorify him?
Exactly, right? So that's the one that I think would really go down in history. What about you? Let's see. Creative spirit right away.
Let's see.
I know you got a slogan for life.
I was thinking more along the lines of, like, nothing was wasted, but some people get wasted or something. I don't know.
I love nothing was wasted.
Yeah.
Because I agree with you. Like, nothing is wasted. And that's a beautiful thing. And I would, on a serious note, like, if you ever want to turn that into a shirt, let me know, because I got some skills.
Yeah.
I'm getting better with the Canva.
Yeah.
Shout out to all the graphic designers that are currently out of business because of Canva.
That sucks.
I used to work with a guy, a graphic designer dude, and this is when Canva was kind of like first starting off, and he was super busy, and so I respected that, but I would hit him up. I'd be like, hey, I got this idea for a shirt, man. Like, will you help me design it? And he'd be like, yeah, and then he wouldn't get back to me, so then I'd just go to Canva and make something, and I'd send it to him, and then he'd be like, that's fucking trash, man, and then he'd make something. So I figured it out. I was like, I just make something on Canva
And make him edit
that's
it.
trash, and then he's like, he's inspired now to help me. But now Canva's like, I mean,
anything.
AI, man, AI is changing a lot of things. Yeah, AI, that's another conversation.
Yeah.
Right
People are
there.
having, like, full-on conversations with ChatGPT.
I
It's
know.
wild.
I know. So anyways, get back to me on the shirt idea.
Absolutely. There's a lot I want to do with
Yeah.
that. I mean, possibly a book,
Yep.
podcast
Yep.
of my own. So
We're going to get you your podcast popping. We are. We're going to get your podcast popping for sure. What's your favorite ice cream?
Ooh, that would have to be Ben and Jerry's Half Baked.
Okay.
It's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite scripture?
Favorite scripture? Gosh, favorite. There's so many that I love.
There's a lot.
I'm gonna be cliche and say John 3:16.
John 3:16. What is that one?
For God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son. Whoever believes in Him should not perish,
Yeah.
but have everlasting life.
I love it, man. Shout out to Jesus.
Amen.
And what is your favorite movie of all time?
That's not a thing. You
What?
can't just have like one favorite movie.
No, I have one.
There's no way.
So
There's so many good movies for different reasons. I
True.
could never narrow it
true.
down to one.
Okay, top two.
Top two? Oh my gosh. I'm gonna say A Beautiful Mind.
Mm-hmm.
The Departed.
Okay.
I love that movie.
That's two.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I would just keep